So the Senate leaving Washington for the August recess as scheduled following a weekend marathon of overnight voting, which saw the passage of a stopgap funding bill to avert a government shutdown. However, there was no vote on the Senate's $150 billion budget framework or the Save America Act. More GOP senators now acknowledging they do not have the votes to pass it just yet, leaving the election integrity bill's fate up in the air as we close in, of course, on the midterms. Let's bring in Arizona Congressman David Schweikert. He chairs the Joint Economic Committee. Congressman, are you happy with what the Senate passed for the stopgap funding? And do you think the first priority when you return just before September is to once again push for Save America?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. But I'm rarely happy with the Senate. It's just the nature of the two bodies. It's intensely frustrating. Look, I accept it's an election year. I accept there's an avoidance of anything with controversy. But these are just basic blocking and tackling of our job. So the Senate did pass a continuing resolution, but they made some changes to it. So when we as the House members come back, we're going to have to figure out, are those changes acceptable? You know, some of them are annoying, but I think we can make it work. But the other pieces of legislation, the funding for additional munitions, the SAVE Act, that's in the Senate's court, and they have to produce the votes for those.
Okay, so I was going to ask you about that because they had one vote early Saturday morning on a voter ID bill. Democrats voted against it. They blocked it from the 60-vote threshold. You know, Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn was actually with Maria on Sunday on the need to break up the Save America Act to get it passed. Watch this.
Maria, as you and I have talked, we think we're going to have to break the Save America Act into pieces, take them one at a time. The interesting thing was every single Democrat voted against showing an ID, even though 83% of the American people and 71% of all Democrats think you ought to have to show that ID. But we're committed to still doing this. You show an ID, you prove that you're a citizen, and my bill, which incentivizes states to check their voter roll against that DHS SAVE system, which is the listing of people that are in the country but are not citizens. And as we saw in New Jersey, who claimed they had no problem with non-citizens voting, they had 6,600 people that they admitted were registered to vote who are not citizens.
You know, recent Fox News polling finds 83% of registered voters do support showing a valid ID when you register to vote. 77% say show your valid ID to vote, Congressman. So if they can't get, a popular voter ID bill to 60 votes, is there any hope they can pass anything in that bill?
That is the brilliant question. Look, for those of us here in Arizona, we actually have a voter ID law, and it's worked. Look, this is substantially Democrat politics pandering to their left, that anything President Trump wants, anything Republicans want, they're in hot water if they step up and support. And so it's the classic case of, do you do what's good for America? Do you do what the majority of Americans want? Or do the Democrat members of the Senate pander to their left?
Well, let's talk about that, okay? As we move into the midterms, and let's talk a little bit about 2028, because we're less than 90 days from the midterms. Democrats in these recent polls are leading Republicans on a generic ballot. As primary season is wrapping up, there's some establishment Democrats that are worried now about how these far left candidates are going to fare against Republicans in the general. Congressman, a lot of these candidates that we're seeing, some in your party, the Democrats are cozying up to them because of 2028. And I found this interesting. Politico's reporting that Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona actually called Abdullah Sayed last week. You had Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom. When you talk about the 2028 potentials, AOC, et cetera, they're kind of moving towards these very radical candidates. But if you look at the midterms, that's a general. How do you feel right now about where your party is positioned, and can you keep control of the House?
Look, we as House members on the conservative side, Republican side, need to do a much better job explaining basic economics, what we're trying to do to keep the economy growing, to raise wages. And so often we get caught in the noise. Here in Arizona, the majority registration is independent. Are we doing a good job talking to those independent voters, saying we actually care about you? We believe prosperity is moral. And so often we get off on the other issues that are meaningful to those of us on the Republican side instead of focusing on those votes we need. And I'm hoping over the next month we sharpen our message so we can offset the Democrats' sort of message of rage.
Well, and look, I mean, rent, groceries, healthcare. Maybe that needs to be on repeat, right? But at the same time,
I would
go ahead.
beg of you to throw wages in there, because we've done good things there. It does take time for it to work through the economy, but we don't tell that story enough.
Yeah. Well, I was looking at these Fox News polls from just a couple of weeks ago. 3/4 of those surveyed rate the economy negatively. But back to the midterm story for just a second, because Joe Gruters actually said this yesterday. I want to ask you this. He said, we're going to win. Of course, RNC chair, Joe Gruters, he said, we start at 212 likely seats. There's 18 toss-up seats. We need 6. I bet you we win 10. So he's bullish. What do you make of those comments from him?
Look, as a young man, I used to do statistics for a polling company. So for me, everything is math. It's one of the reasons I chair the Joint Economic Committee. I always worry when we as a party don't live in the world of math, because ultimately the math will win. And happy talk doesn't get you there. Message and actually policies, plans that make people's lives better gets you there. And so less focus on the horse race and more focus on what we're offering to do for America and the American people.
Yeah, well, look, when 65% of voters say that they believe that the economy is rigged for the wealthy, there is a messaging issue. And it sounds like
Exactly.
you were very dialed into that as well. And you're on the Joint Economic Committee, so you really are. Congressman David Schweikert, it's great to see you, of course. Thank you for being with us this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right.